All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to want to miss this. You're going to meet Justin Ford today, and you're going to hear his testimony. You're going to find out how he's selling 135 houses a year from rock bottom just a few years ago, and then you're going to hear about his rock that he found at the bottom. Coming up next on Cliff's Notes. Real estate agents, are you struggling with the day-to-day grind, dialing for dollars, putting in hours of floor time with little to show for it? Are you looking for tips, tricks, and tactics to accelerate your career as an agent that will have you closing more homes, working with more clients, and earning more money than ever before? Hi, my name's Cliff Freeman, and I've spent the past 2 decades of my real estate career running one of the top brokerages in DFW and personally coaching over 1,000 high-performing real estate professionals across North America. I created this podcast to share the strategies and tactics you need to explode your real estate business. I guarantee it. And I do guarantee it. Welcome to the show today, ladies and gentlemen. C3, how are you feeling this afternoon, man?
Blessed and highly favored.
Blessed and highly favored. I like that. Yeah. I'm feeling
excited, man. The Cowboys are having a little
football.
Preseason. Yeah.
Yes, let's bring in our local expert on the Dallas Cowboys. Travis, how are you? How are we going to do this year?
I'm great, man. I'm great. I believe we'll win probably 13 games. I'm going to put that in the air. 13 games is what we're going to win.
13. How many do we play this year? 17?
I believe so. 17 games, I think.
That's pretty good. That'll get us a playoff spot, won't it?
I think we'll go to the playoffs. I think it'll be a good year for the boys. We all healthy, got a good defense. I think we doing good.
We're ready.
I don't know. We better bring in this young man from Detroit. He's got a good football team, the Lions, up there in his neck of the woods. What kind of year are you all going to have, Justin? You got any tips for us on what we need to do with our money?
Oh, boy. Honestly, with Matt Stafford, our quarterback, leaving to go to the Rams, and we've gotten, Jared Goff in, we lost a lot of players last year. I think it's going to be a rebuild year, but I think we'll at least go, 5-11.
Is that right? Now, you're also a 5-11. That's 16 games.
Yeah, it's not that good.
You're going to have to pick a couple of more games up in there, I think, this year. I think one more. I think. Now, you're also a big Michigan fan, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm not talking about the state. I'm talking about University of Michigan, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And how's that team looking this year?
We've had our best recruiting class that's coming in. We've got a stud 5-star running back that was actually the number 1 running back in the class. We've also got a 5-star quarterback. We've got some great players. I mean, this year, honestly, Jim Harbaugh, this will be his 6th season as a coach. I mean, he has to do something this year. And honestly, I think for us, even if we went, if we went 10-2, but we don't beat Ohio State, it's not a good year. We have to beat Ohio State this year. It's an absolute must.
I can see there's smoke on the horizon coming down from your state already. Yeah, we've got a lot of friends that would take issue with you on that. But anyway, I think it's very cool. And one thing is for sure, one of them is going to win, right?
That's for dang sure.
You can put all your money on that,
yeah.
definitely. Speaking of you're always going to win, man. I know you've got an incredible story that we're just so excited to have you on the show, Justin, and for you to be here, be open, and be willing to share. Which something, I mean, it just took me almost to my knees when you were, describing the things that you've struggled with and conquered, and the way you've persevered and been steadfast in some really difficult times. And then you've gone on to build an incredible real estate business. You recently came on board with us here at EXP, and you've also got just a truly wonderful family, a lovely wife and 4 children. And you guys are just, I mean, it's like the Norman Rockwell painting. I put that picture of you guys where you were on the beach, and that's all I could think of was, like this should be a Life magazine cover story. But it wasn't always like that, was it?
Right. No, not at all. Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, Cliff. It's even before this show, I was actually just coming from shooting part of a mini documentary that's going to be done on me for an upcoming book, and we were actually shooting footage at the jail that I was locked up in, about 20 years ago. And there's a spot behind the jail that I remember being in the jail, actually looking out of the window, and so being on the other side of the fence looking in, it's just. It's pretty incredible, where I've come from and the things that I've gone through and where I am today 20 years ago.
Would you be open to just kind of walking us backward a little bit? You know, we've got there's something I think that's really key here, and if you would, I know, and it may be tough, I know, for you to share, but if you would, can you just kind of go back a little bit? What was it like growing up, you know, as a young Justin? What was your
Sure,
family life
absolutely.
like?
Yep. So my parents divorced when I was 2, and grew up in what I thought back then was just a normal good home. Moved out from my mom. My stepdad divorced when I was 12, so I moved in with my dad when I was 12, and my dad struggled with alcohol. He was on and off, drinking, and had a lot of issues in his life with alcohol. And I always remember going to like AA meetings with him and stuff and hearing about, hey, this is a disease, and if you carry it, and if you drink and you decide to drink, it's going to take you down this path. And when I was young, going to these meetings with him, I never really considered or thinking about drinking. I was young. But when I hit my teenage years, I think things changed a little bit. My dad went from being sober for a handful of years to going back to drinking, which being a teenager in the area that I grew up here in, outside of Detroit, peer pressure, hung out with a lot of kids and started, smoking weed and drinking at the age of 14, lost my virginity at the age of 14. And I think, the hip hop culture and just entertainment like it does today, had a lot of influence on me as a teenager. And, I wanted to become, this person. So I thought, so I started doing drugs and, selling drugs and drinking, even though I was an honor roll student in high school. I was, 3.0 plus grade point average. And, I had a grandfather, and he told me, he says, Justin, if you go to college and you go to law school and you stay out of trouble, I'll give you my law firm. And, he just said there's under one condition. You can't get a felony. And so, I got, 16, 17, 18 years old. I met this girl who is now today my daughter's mother. And I was 16, she was 19, and basically fell in love. So I thought, and it was more of an infatuation. And what it caused me to do was really just take my eyes off of school and, trying to stay out of trouble, and do the right thing to, at the age of 17, moving out of my dad's house and going to move in with her. And I was just sharing this story earlier as I was doing this video footage, that my mom and my dad, even though they were divorced, they both said, hey, listen, if you move out and you go move in with this girl, eventually you're going to drop out of school, you're going to get into trouble, you're going to get her pregnant, you're going to go to jail. And I said, well, I'll show you. Well, I did show them that they were right. And between the ages of 17 and 19, I acquired 8 misdemeanors and a felony, all drug and alcohol related, sold drugs to an undercover cop, caught a felony, overdosed, almost died, and got into a drunk driving accident and almost lost my life. And, it was just, I just went down the spiral real fast. And then, I remember being so in bondage and trapped, and I wanted out. I just didn't know how to get out. I remember this one time, I was partying and doing drugs, cocaine and all types of drugs. I was up for more than 24 hours. And I remember being, driving around with this guy and these girls, and it was like 7:38 in the morning, and they kicked me out of their vehicle because I was causing trouble and just running my mouth like I always did back then. And I was just dropped off on this road, in a public place, and I was drunk, and they called the police on me. I got picked up for, public intoxication. They took me to jail. And I knew that this was like the low part of my life. They put me in jail, and I remember I was so dehydrated because, the drugs that I was using made you dehydrated. And they had only given me like this little cup of juice. And if you remember, like when you were a kid, maybe you got them in school with the little tin foil pull off, and they wouldn't give me nothing else to drink. And I literally was laying there on the jail floor. Like I felt like I was dying. I mean, it was a long 24 hours of partying, and I was coming down, and I needed some water, and they wouldn't give me any water. So this is how low I got. I took that cup of, that they gave me, and I dipped it into the toilet to actually drink water, just to stay alive, because I literally felt like I was dying.
Wow, that must have been a real struggle, not just for you, but for your parents and everyone around you at that time, Justin. What eventually happened, and how did you realize that you were on a dead end, and how did you get your life straightened out then?
Yeah. And again, I mean, it even took me by surprise because I never, thought of myself, living this life, but I always heard that, certain drugs are the gateway to other things, and just found myself just, completely out of control. And I know that especially my mom, and I know it affected my dad too, but my mom, she told me, she said she used to be on her hands and knees praying for me, every single day. And she felt, she was waiting to get the call, to have to come identify my body. And there were multiple instances that should have happened. But even that toilet bowl situation, you would have thought that would have been kind of the end of the road for me, but it wasn't. But what was the final, the final draw, or the final straw, was when I got into that drunk driving accident. I was downtown in Detroit, out partying, and I don't even remember, this incident happening. I just remember getting kicked out of a club, and that kind of was like the last thing I remember. And I had just the week before had gotten baptized. I moved into my mom's house, and I told her I wanted to change my life. So she lets me move back in. And I really, truly, sincerely wanted to change. I go to church, I get baptized, and I'm ready for a new life change. But I was working at this restaurant. It was a Mexican restaurant called Rio Bravo. It was a national franchise, and they had this May 5th, which is known as Cinco de Mayo. It's like what we call 4th of July. And we're at I'm working at a Mexican restaurant, and I leave church. My mom that morning, Cliff, she says, "Hey, I'm going to give you the keys to my car. I'm going to let you go to church, and I'm going to let you go to work. But don't mess it up, because I trust you," right? So she saw this change starting to take place. And so I go to the Mexican restaurant, and immediately, it's like a party. And so I get triggered. There's DJs there, big party, alcohol, everybody's having a good time. And I remember praying that morning. I'm at the altar, and I experienced the presence of God for the first time. And it was just like the most amazing feeling that I had ever felt. And I remember praying at the altar, and I said, "God, I wish I could experience church like this every day. I wish I could have this experience." It was like no drug or alcohol that I had ever experienced, was just this presence of God. And so I left there, went to the restaurant, and all of a sudden I'm triggered. I'm feeling tempted, and I end up starting to slam these Long Islands. I had like 5 or 6 Long Island iced teas within an hour, and basically kind of blacked out at work. Got fired. They caught me drinking margaritas in the parking lot. Took my mom's car and left, and went to go downtown Detroit. I knew I couldn't go home because I was drunk. So I took her car, went downtown, was at this club, got kicked out of the club. And the next thing I knew, I was standing next to a state police officer on the side of the freeway, looking at my mom's car smashed into the wall. I blew a .21, which is 3 times the legal limit here in Michigan, and was lucky to be alive. There were different instances where I was blacking in and out. The next thing I know, I'm sitting at across the table from a police officer with my mom on the phone. She's crying, screaming, hysterical. "You're not coming home. I can't believe you did this, that, and the other." She said, "You're not coming home. You need to go to the Grace Centers of Hope," which here in Michigan is a faith-based treatment center that I had heard about previously. And at that moment, I'm like, I'm done. So I was in jail for 2 days, and I was already on probation for a previous drunk driving. I was on a restricted license, and I was on probation in 4 different cities at that time. So I needed a miracle. And I remember being in that cell for about 2 days, and I knew that I had to go before the judge and be arraigned. And I just prayed, and I said, "God, if you'll let me out of here, I will change my life, and I'll live for you." And I went before the judge, and believe it or not, Cliff, they let me out with no bail. I didn't have to pay bail. They let me out the door, even after seeing all of the charges and everything that I had previously. And so I held my end of the bargain up. I hopped on a public bus, and I took the bus to Grace Centers of Hope. I checked myself in, and in Grace Centers of Hope is where I found Jesus. But I want to tie this back. I remember praying that prayer, that morning in church, saying, "I wish I could experience church every day." Well, about 3 or 4 days in, we were having church every single day. So every morning, all the guys had to come into the chapel. We had church, and I immediately, after being there about 3 or 4 days, felt the presence of God again. And I heard the Lord say, you prayed and you said you wanted church every day. And so I spent the next 6 to 7 months in there. Life was completely changed, built a relationship with the Lord, and he healed me, delivered me from the addictions, and here I am today.
Wow. That's just a story that hits you so deep in the heart, and it's great to see the redemption that's in Christ's blood, that just can take you from the darkest of the darks and bring you back out into the light. Um, so, okay. So that was all happened at the time that you got out of the rehab facility. How old were you then?
19.
19. All this stuff happened to you really before age 20.
Before age 20, yep.
Okay. And then at that time you were single at that moment.
Yep.
You had a daughter,
Mm-hmm.
right? What role
Yes,
did
sir.
you play in your daughter's life during this time?
So during the time of going through all of those, ups and downs that I had and all the hardships, I didn't have a relationship with her. Her mom was keeping her from me. And so I remember going into Grace Centers of Hope and my life began to change. And I wanted to have a relationship with her, but, she wouldn't bring her up to see me. And I remember when I got out of Grace Centers of Hope, I wanted to, be in my daughter's life. And so I heard that her mom was now getting into trouble and making bad decisions. And so, her mom started, going down the path of using drugs and, making a lot of bad decisions. And so not too long after Grace Centers of Hope, I began to get my life together. I got a job. I ended up getting a place to stay. And, I went to go fight for my daughter and get custody of her. And I actually ended up winning custody of her when she was 4 years old. So I had gotten custody of her not too long after getting out of Grace Centers of Hope.
I can't even figure how that's possible. I mean, that's just amazing. That's amazing testimony. What a witness.
Yep.
All right. So then after you got out, you got on a new track and it was, you were born again. Tell us
Yep.
about the next few years then, Justin.
Yeah. So even while I was in, I'll back it up just a little bit because this kind of references what I talk about in my book. While I was sitting in that homeless shelter, I really, truly had an encounter with God. Like he became so real to me. And I remember, people starting to talk about like what is, like what God's plan is for your life and his will, and he's got a purpose and a plan for your life. And so I remember, so we stayed in this dorm room. So there was about 50, 60 men. And I'm like this young white suburban kid, with a lot of older, guys, multiracial, so it was like I was in a tough place. A lot of these guys were seasoned on the street for a lot more than a few years, but I went in there and I truly wanted change. And God sent this African American man into that homeless shelter a couple days after I was there, named Dwayne, and he became my first mentor. And he really introduced Jesus to me. He read the scriptures with me. He prayed for me. He had my back, and he really mentored me while I was in there. And I remember him talking about, how God had a plan for my life and he wanted to use my life and this and that. So I remember laying on my bunk bed one time and really asking God, like, what is your plan for my life? Like, what is, obviously you saved me for a reason and kept me alive. What is that plan that you have for my life? And God began to just download vision and revelation to me. He showed me that one day I was going to be successful and that he was going to use me to share my story and help other people, and that I'd be married to a beautiful wife and just have kids and just, this whole new life of success. And that's obviously what vision is, right? Being able to, see something that is not tangible, but believe it, to come to pass. And that just, really got me fired up and excited for my life. And then I started receiving prophetic words and people just speaking these things that God had put in my heart, confirmation of what God was already speaking to me. And so I began really early on after getting out of this homeless shelter to realize that God had a plan for my life. I had to partner up. I went to, because of my drunk driving accident, I had to go to Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And I remember, hearing these stories about, people tragically passing away because of drinking and driving. And the lady that was leading the Mothers Against Drunk Driving at the time, her son had actually passed away because he had gotten hit by a drunk driver. And it really spoke to me. And I'm like, I have a story too that I want to share. So I actually started working with Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and I started speaking in high schools all over Metro Detroit. And I realized that I had a story that could really make a difference in people's lives. And so I went on to start speaking, and then I was introduced to, business and being an entrepreneur through Amway. And it really got me fired up and excited about what was possible in business. And so met my wife back in 2005. So I had just gotten custody of my daughter at the time, and I met my wife. And, after I would gotten saved, Cliff, I didn't want to just date girls. Like I really wanted a wife for I'm sorry, a wife, but I wanted a mother for my daughter. All the dating and sex and all those things, I did all that before, and I just wanted, to be married and do things the right way. And so I specifically prayed. I was challenged at that Amway conference. They said, hey, for all the single people here that want to get married, we challenge you to go home and write out your vision of ideally what you want in a spouse. And it really challenged me, like the Bible says, write down the vision and make it plain. She said from stage how she did this for her husband, that she wrote down specifically what she wanted in a spouse. And so I remember leaving that conference, the Amway conference, and going home and writing down everything that I wanted in a wife. I said, I want an exotic wife with brown skin. I wanted to love God, and I wanted to want to do business and things, and wrote all this stuff down because I was going through a period of time, where I was, every girl I would meet, I would size her up to see if she was my wife, because I wanted a wife, right? I didn't want to just go out and, run around with a bunch of girls. I wanted a wife, and I was getting discouraged. I'm like, God, where is my wife? And so after I, wrote this list out, I kind of prayed over it, and I had like this moment with God, and I'm like, God, if you've never called me, to be married, I'm okay with that, right? Because, Apostle Paul wasn't married. And I said, God, if I'm not supposed to be married, I'm okay with that. And I prayed over that paper, and I literally put it up in my closet. And it was so funny, is in 2 weeks later, I met my wife, and she was exactly what I wrote down on the paper. She's half Mexican, half Filipino, brown skin, loves the Lord, great mom. We're in business together. And everything that God showed me in that homeless shelter, 20 years ago, a lot of it's come to pass.
Wow. I mean, I just get goosebumps, hearing you talk about this, and the prophetic, and then the results that you got from that. And it's just, it's really amazing. And so you and your wife now currently are working together, and how old are your children now, Justin?
Yep. So that little girl that I got custody of 20 years ago is about to turn 21. She just got married this past Sunday, and so now I have a son-in-law, and they also have a beautiful little boy. So I'm a grandpa. You can call me Grandpa Justin if you want. So he's 10 months old. So we have our oldest son, so I had one, and my wife had one when we met. So I had the older one. She had our next oldest one, and we had two together. So Angelina is about to be 21. Emilio turns 18 in 3 weeks. Tierra turns 15 next week, and our Judah, our little boy Judah, he just turned 8 back in May.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Well, the pictures are on Facebook. They're such a beautiful family you have. The kids are awesome, and now you guys are building a very flourishing business. Let's go ahead and let's talk about your business a little bit, because you have done some incredible things in real estate. Tell us about that sort of zero moment of truth where it was, where you knew it was all real estate.
Yeah. So after my wife and I got married, I was in the mortgage business at the time. When I got introduced to commission sales, I thought I had arrived, because, I was always number one in everything that I did. Even where I met my wife, it was a telemarketing firm where we were raising money for the cancer fund. Before that, I was a travel agent. Everything that I did in sales, I was always really good at. And I had a buddy, I had just met my wife, and I had a buddy who said, hey, we're doing mortgage refinances. You should come over and, make some calls with us at night. And I said, sure. And I was making like $7-8 an hour during the day, very little commission off raising the money for the cancer fund. But I went over to my buddy's shop and started making calls, prospecting, and setting refinance appointments. And within 2 weeks, I had quit my regular job. And so I'm like, this is what I want to do. So got into mortgages and, did really well, hit 6 figures really quick doing mortgages. And unfortunately, I went from 6 figures to no figures overnight, because I got in kind of at the tail end of, I think it was in 2005, right? 2006, 2007, when I was doing mortgages. And that's kind of when, we were getting ready to crash. And so me and Joy got married 2005. And, Joy came from a very low income home. I came from a low income home. So we never really had money. We never really went on trips. We never did anything. We weren't the kids that, got the new Jordans when they came out, or all the, designer clothes that all the kids were wearing. I mean, we came from very low, to middle class homes. And so the first taste of money we made, I remember my first month I made 10 grand. I thought that I had arrived. but we didn't really have any financial background, so nobody was really teaching us anything. And so I went out and bought me a brand new Lincoln, bought her a brand new Pacifica, bought $1,000 watch, bought a house, and we were, eating out all the time and not really responsible financially. And I remember I had a mentor at the time, and he's like, Justin, I hope you're saving money because the market's going to crash. I'm like, it's not crashing, man. This is going to last forever. And then, like I said, it crashed. And so again, we went from six figures to no figures overnight. Within our first 2 years of marriage, we went through bankruptcy, lost our house to foreclosure, both of our cars to repossession, had to get on food stamps, had to move in with my mom and live on her basement floor. And that defining moment for me, though, Cliff, even just in life was, here in Michigan, we have a 6-month redemption period. So if a house goes into foreclosure, you have 6 months to redeem it, live in it, whatever. And I remember we weren't aware of what short sales or loan modifications or anything were at that time. So we rode it out for the full 6 months because we didn't really have any money to go anywhere. I was trying to, do some other business stuff during the day, was delivering pizzas at night, trying to just make ends meet. And I remember on the last day, the sheriff came and dropped the dumpster in our driveway. And I remember how difficult that was because we couldn't rent a truck. We didn't have money to pay for anybody to help us move. So I had a buddy who had a little Dodge Durango. Like we moved till like 2 or 3 in the morning. We were moving stuff from the house down, to the other house that we were renting. And I remember that my wife was under such stress that we were losing our home. She broke out in hives. Her whole body from head to toe broke out in hives. She had to go to the emergency room, and they said it was from stress that she was breaking out with these hives. And I remember, in this moment that, that I was going to succeed no matter what. Like I made a decision in that moment that I was going to figure out how to succeed and never allow, my wife and my kids and our family to go through a circumstance like that. So I got into short sales and loan modifications, started making money again. And then that kind of changed. And I said, you know what? I'm going to get into the real estate industry. I'm going to get my real estate license and I'm going to go crush it. And I hooked up with this guy named Jeff Glover, really well known in the real estate industry here locally. I said, in order to be the best, you got to learn from the best. And so I joined his team, sold 100 homes my first year in the business, was his top agent for the 3 years I was there. I was his inside sales manager, was on TV commercials with him. And then after 3 years of being there, I said, you know what, I'm going to go start my own brokerage. And so I had my broker's license. And, after building my own brokerage for a while, I realized that that's not really what I wanted. Had a bunch of agents, a bunch of overhead, wasn't making any money, lost my excitement and my joy for the business, almost quit real estate. My wife said, God told me to tell you that you can't quit real estate because he's called you to this industry and he's chosen you and he's anointed you for this industry and for real estate. And I really received that word that she gave me. And then decided, well, you know what, I'm not going to build a brokerage. I'm going to go back into full-time production. And so at the end of 2018, I made a decision I was going to go back into full-time production. In 2018, I did 5.8 million in volume, which wasn't that good. But I hired a coach and got real focused on, getting out there and making it happen. I went from 5.8 million to 15 million back in 2019. And last year I had my best year ever. Sold just under 135 homes and 31 million in personal volume. And last year changed everything for our life and our family.
Wow, that is incredible. This wasn't just one bump in the road, Justin, was it? I mean, you've seen it from all sides, and
Yep.
then come back and literally crush it. 100 homes your first year, and then now rebuilding, and coming back, and not only have you maintained that relationship with Jeff Glover, but you're also now one of his coaches, right?
Yep. Yeah, actually, so after that year in 2019 where I ended up doing 15 million, I became a real big testimony of what is possible with coaching and putting in the work and everything like that. Me and Jeff always had a great relationship, and we always knew that our paths would cross again. And I kept that relationship good even after I left. I remember there were people that would like clear out their office in the middle of the night and leave him a note on his door. And I'm like, that's not the right way to do it. So even when I was leaving, I took him out to dinner, told him I was leaving, and, just kept that relationship good. And so, 2 years ago, he said, how would you like to be our prospecting boot camp coach and be one of our speakers and trainers? And I said, absolutely, because it's what I love to do. And I look at it even from a kingdom perspective, marketplace ministry. Ed Silvaso wrote a book called Anointed for Business, and it really opened my eyes, because I thought you had to choose between either being in ministry and church, like you had to be a pastor or a deacon or something to be in ministry. But when I really caught the understanding and the vision of what it means to be a marketplace minister and bring the kingdom of God into the marketplace, it really changed how I do business, how I show up, and what I do. And so I use, that platform, even with Glover U or any other platform that, gives me the opportunity to share my testimony, to give people hope, to let them know that no matter what you're going through, no matter where you are in life right now, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And with God, all things are possible.
I can't tell you how I believe that's needed in our industry, just because there's so many broken people, broken families as a result of, the stress in real estate and, going from paycheck to paycheck and sometimes months without paychecks, and really not having any more support, especially with the way legacy brokerages have been built around the broker and not around the agent. You made a decision, Justin, not too long ago to move over to EXP. What were some of the things that drove you to make that decision?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like many people, Cliff, I was a never EXP guy. I was never going to join EXP. And so back when I had left, well, I'll backtrack a little bit. Before I actually, got into production with Jeff, I was an ISA, and we were at a Mike Ferry event out in California, and I had the privilege to meet AJ Maida. AJ was just a brand new agent with Keller Williams, and AJ and I met. And the thing that caused AJ and I to really click was he's a born again believer as well. And so, we were talking about worship, we were talking about the kingdom, we were talking about, family and all of these things. And so we really hit it off, and I really liked AJ. And so we stayed in touch. I went on to work with Jeff for 3 years. He went on to do his Keller Williams thing for a handful of years. And right at the same time that I was going to start my own company, AJ was getting ready to move over to EXP. And so AJ was actually the first person to present EXP to me 4 years ago. And I remember him saying, "Hey man, I'm getting ready to, move over to this company, man, you should check it out." And at that time I had a vision from God for my brokerage. Like, I wasn't trying to look at anything else. I was fired up and excited about my business. And then everybody and their mama started trying to recruit me to EXP locally. And I'm just like, I don't like the logo. It's a cult. I don't like the colors. I would never go join that business. No way whatsoever. And but what I did though, Cliff, is I kept an eye on AJ, right? We still had a friendship, and I saw his life changing on Facebook. And I saw him go from, selling real estate to buying a motor home and traveling the country and, living it up. And I'm like, man, what is this guy doing, man? Is EXP really affording him to do this? And I've always loved, MLMs. I always loved, downlines and residual income and all of that. I've always loved multi-level passive residual opportunities, but I really never understood what EXP really had to offer, because of my pride and ego, I never really took a look at it. And so after, things were kind of winding down from being a broker and kind of going back into, full-time production, I was in prayer. I kid you not, Cliff. I was in prayer, and God said, "I want you to take a look at EXP." And I said, "Well, if you said so, I'm going to take a look at it." I wasn't going to tell God no. And I went to this meeting. Now watch this. This is how this was all God. A couple of days before, I had reached out to AJ because he was like, "Man, I'm up to 1,000 people or whatever in his team." And I'm like, I sent him a message on Facebook. I'm like, "Man, how much money are you making right now a month?" I was curious. And he's like, "Well, let's just hop on a call in a couple of days and let's talk." I said, "Absolutely." Well, then I go to this EXP meeting because a couple of days before, God tells me to take a look at it. I'm invited to a local meeting. It wasn't a big one. It was just a private one. And I'm like blown away. And I started to get those butterflies of excitement in my stomach, which I hadn't had in a long time. And so the guy's up front. And so I'm thinking he's maybe like sponsored by one of the local teams. And I didn't want to be at any of the local teams. All those guys are awesome. They're great. I don't align with, where they are in life. And so I'd already talked to AJ just a couple of days ago. And again, at this time, AJ lives in North Carolina. I'm in Michigan. And I asked the guy who's doing the meeting, I said, "Man, who sponsored you in?" And he says, "AJ Maida." I said, "What?" I said, "How is that possible?" But I knew why it was possible. And so immediately I left that meeting, got excited, called AJ. I said, "Dude, I'm in. I'm excited. Let's do this thing." And so I started going down the path of exploring what EXP would look like. And at the same time, I had just joined Glover U. And so there was this part of me that just, even though I wanted to join EXP, I just didn't feel like the complete timing was 100% right. This was right at the end of 2019. And I go to meet with Jeff, and I'm like, Jeff, I just, I'm excited to join Glover U, but I'm also going to EXP. He says, you can't do that. I said, well, what do you mean? He says, you got to choose one or the other. I said, why? He said, well, because our whole business is based on Keller Williams, and we can't have you speaking from stage and doing all this with EXP. And he actually tried to set up a meeting with me to go out to Austin and meet with Gary, because I was considering leaving my brokerage and going out on my own. He was trying to get me to come back to Keller Williams, but I just felt like going to Keller Williams was going backwards because I was already there. And so I said, you know what? Fine. So I felt like I talked to my wife, like, you know what? We felt led to stick with Glover U. So that next year is when I had my record-breaking year, which opened up a lot of doors for me on an influential level, meaning my name started to really get known in a lot of ways. I started coaching, so a lot of agents are knowing me. And so now I've got this Glover U platform where, it's now, an opportunity to build relationships with other agents. So fast forward to the end of last year, October 2020, AJ's in town. I'm like, dude, let's meet. I'm ready. Like, me and my wife were like, it's time. And so I made the decision. And again, so I go to meet with Jeff. And this time, Cliff, though, I was like, you know what? I'm going to EXP regardless. If I have to choose between the two, it's time to go to EXP. I felt it in my spirit. I knew it was time. And Jeff said, you know what? I think it's a great time for you to go to EXP, because we don't only want Keller Williams agents, for us to coach just Keller Williams agents. We want to open this up to everybody. And so January 1 was my official start date with EXP.
Wow. That's insane. I mean, wow, what a ride that was. Now, you're not one to make decisions willy-nilly. You rely on God to direct you a lot. I'm going to jump back for a minute because there's a part of your past that we didn't talk about, but I want you to just tell the audience a little bit about that 30-day fast that you did.
Yeah, thank you. And so coming into 2020, I had some partners in my business back when I had my independent brokerage. I was also doing a property management, and also had some acquisitions that we were doing, and some partnerships kind of went sideways. And I realized I had partnered with some people that I shouldn't have really been in business with, but I know God causes all things to work together for the good, especially where I am now. Things just started really going sideways in a lot of ways. I had a CPA that was working our taxes, royally screwed up our taxes. So it took, 3 years for 3 years worth of taxes to be filed. I ended up getting behind and owing the IRS $150,000 over this period of time. We were in a lease in our office. We had signed a 3-year lease, and we were paying like $5,000 or $6,000 a month. And as my team kind of dwindled down, it was just me, my wife, and like 1 or 2 other people. We couldn't pay our lease anymore. We got behind like $25,000, $26,000. And just all these things. I had a couple of lawsuits that came at me from the property management company. I mean, I just had like the world was caving in. So many things were just coming against me. And I remember laying on I closed my door in my office and just literally laid on the floor and just cried, because it was just like, God, what are you doing? What's going on? None of this makes sense, and just was broken. But then I started to fast. And so coming into 2020, I just said, God, I need a breakthrough year. There's so much going on. I just need you to show up and bring complete breakthrough. And so the Lord really challenged me in prayer to fast 7 days in January, 10 days in February, 14 days in March, 21 days in April, and then 30 days in May. Well, I did the 7 in January, the 10 in February, and then COVID hit. And so then I got really discouraged, because our business and everything shut down here completely for like 2 months, got discouraged, and then got back up again, fasted a couple of days. And at the end of May, I'm in prayer, and I'm just crying out to God, and I'm just like, God, I just need you. And he says, how bad do you want breakthrough in your life? How bad do you want the things that I have in store for you? And I said, God, I want them bad. He says that I'm calling you to a 30-day fast. And I always knew at some point in life that I was going to do a 30-day fast, but I dreaded it, right? There was no way. I'm like, how can you go 30 days without eating? Because I love food. But the difference between this fast and other fast, Cliff, was God said, I'm calling you to a 30-day fast. And so I committed last June to fast for 30 days, January 1 to January 30th. And in that month, I sold 31 homes. I did 8 million in GCI, made over $200,000, paid off all my IRS debt last year, bought a house after renting for 10 years. All my lawsuits were satisfied. We got let out of the lease supernaturally. Last year, because of that fast, was a complete breakthrough year, and I've never looked back since.
Wow. Yeah, that's just amazing. Total God thing, man.
Total
So-
God thing.
So talk to us a little bit about the future.
Yep. So here's another reason, why. Well, the main reason why I came to EXP was because God told me to. But about a year and a half ago, the Lord spoke to my wife, and God said to her, "I'm giving you a platform that I'm going to use you and Justin, to because of we'll be married 16 years this year. I mean, we've had marriage issues, financial issues. I mean, all types of issues." But I look back and realize now that everything that we've gone through is to have a testimony and to help other people. And I remember God telling her that I'm going to give you guys a platform that you're going to reach people globally to help people with their marriages and their finances and really use our testimony, because there's even more to the story. I mean, my father-in-law tragically committed suicide back in 2011. Was an amazing man of God, the drummer at church. I mean, he was the guy that everybody loved, and he fell into this deep, dark depression, committed suicide. It rocked our family. And I remember, how difficult that time was. And so the Lord said to my wife, I'm going to use all of this hurt and all of this pain to go out and give people hope. And I'm going to give you a platform. Well, when we moved over to EXP, God said, this is the platform. And so now I look at EXP as a ministry opportunity to bring the kingdom and everything that my wife and I have been through to agents, right? We started a prayer call in the morning. We do a 7:30 prayer call Eastern Standard Time every day, Monday through Friday, where we just invite real estate agents, whoever wants to come, and we just pray for God to show up in our businesses. We pray for marriages. We pray for healing. We pray that God would be the source of our provision for our businesses, that God would be the center of it. And God is just opening up doors. I was at the Glover U conference 2 weeks ago, and I had the opportunity to lead one of the agents from California to the Lord right there in the hallway, had the opportunity to pray for so many people. And so this to us is a ministry platform. And so my vision, in the near future is to have minimum 10,000 agents around the world on our team that we raise up to become, marketplace ministers wherever they are. And God gave me a real simple vision for changing the marketplace. And how do you change the world? Because I believe so many people want to be world changers, but Jesus even needed people, right? He recruited 12 people to take his vision of redemption to the world. And so the Lord gave me a real simple and easy vision. How do you change the world? It's one home and one community at a time. What if each person, right, realize that their assignment every day to bring the kingdom of God, and bring world change is every buyer and seller you meet with, you have an opportunity, to be a light. Every agent you work with on the other side of the transaction, you have an opportunity, to bring Jesus to that relationship. And as you raise these people up and they begin to get fired up and excited about what they're called to and what their purpose is, when you change a home, and you change another home, and you change another home, then you can change a community. And when you change a community, you can change another community. And when you change multiple communities, you can change a state. And when you change states, you can change countries. And when you change countries, you can change the world. And I really believe that my assignment is to be a marketplace minister and bring the kingdom of God into the marketplace, especially the real estate industry.
Wow. Amen. And I'll tell you, it's so encouraging to see you in the spirit for the Lord that you have and your commitment to doing this. I want to ask you, we're just about at the end of the show here, but can you take 60 seconds and just, I know we have struggling agents out there watching the show today, that some may be contemplating real estate, some may be contemplating getting out, some are having family issues. Can you just speak a word to those folks for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Wherever you are in life, and I was just sharing this earlier, it's, God takes us through a process. And I remember, asking my pastor several years ago, Why is it so hard? Why is it constantly a struggle? And here's what he said. He says, character is not something that you can pray for, and character is not a gift. Character comes through going through trials and tribulations. Character development comes through going through the hardships of life, and that's how character is developed. And wherever you are right now, I want you to know that you can take what you're going through, you can take the hardship of where you are, and you can turn that into a story. And maybe you already have a story, and maybe you're afraid to share, or open up and be real about the things that you're going through. You need to be able to be, vulnerable. You need to be able to understand that you're not alone. And if you're in real estate and you're thinking about quitting, I would encourage you to ask yourself, why are you looking to quit, right? Because maybe the struggles and the hardship that you're going through right now is building you into the person that you've been praying to become. And I know this for a fact, right? The Bible says to count it all joy when you go through various trials and tribulations, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And then it says, let endurance have its perfect result so that you can be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. I want you to begin looking at the things that you're going through as the very opportunity that you've been praying for to become the person that God is calling you to be. And if you're looking to get into the real estate industry, guys, there is no greater vehicle than real estate to be able to go out and create the life that you want to live, to be able to build financial freedom, time freedom, location freedom. And EXP is the only vehicle out there, guys, that will allow you to do that and give you the opportunity not just to go out and sell real estate, but maybe God's calling you to be a world changer, and maybe he wants to call you into real estate or keep you in real estate to be that world changer in your own community.
Wow, I hope that hits some people where they needed to get hit hard.
For sure.
Yeah. Justin, if somebody in our audience wanted to just speak with you on a kind of a more private level, what's a good way to get a hold of you?
So you can reach out to me through Facebook or Instagram. Those are the two platforms that I use. And I thought I was, I thought I was special until I realized there's a million Justin Fords out there. I thought, yep, Justin Ford taken. Justin Ford 1 taken. So I am the official Justin Ford. So if you need to find me on Facebook or Instagram, just type in the official Justin Ford. There's a lot of us out there, but there's only one official, and you're looking at him right here. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Feel free to reach out and let's connect.
And well, I'll tell you what, we just pray for your work ministry and for the great things you're doing, and just thank God for what he's using you to do, and you and your wife. And it's great to be in business with you. I've never been surrounded by people who love other people and want to help other people like we do here at EXP, and it's just an honor and a privilege to be with you guys. So thank you, Justin, for being on the show today, man. I just 1,000 thank yous, and I know we're going to get to connect in a couple of weeks here. Tony Robbins is going to be in town. In fact, it'll be 2 weeks from tonight. Tony's going to be speaking to about 6,000 of us at the Gaylord in Grapevine, the Gaylord Hotel, and that is a thank you, Brent Gove. Man, we love you. I spoke to you yesterday, Brent, and just thank you so much for all you're doing for us. And I can't wait to give you a man hug, Justin, and just celebrate everything you guys are doing. And I know my son is excited to meet you.
Yeah,
and
man, that was first time hearing his testimony. So
powerful, huh?
That's when you said it took you to your knees. I didn't realize it was going to do that, because it was powerful, man. I thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
and I can't wait to connect with you in person here in Dallas, and let's make it happen. That's just amazing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Excited. Thank
All
you,
right,
guys.
sir. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's another wrap here for Cliff's Notes. We say bye to Justin in Detroit, and we say hello to next week coming on strong. We've got a special guest for you, and then we're going to be out for Tony Robbins. If you think you might want to go see Tony Robbins for the first time, I want you to get a hold of me or C3, because it's very possible we might have a way to get you in to see Tony 2 weeks from today. Let us know. All right. You guys have a great week. What do we say? Good golf, good tennis, whatever makes you happy.
Right, yeah.
We'll see you next week on Cliff's
Notes.
All right, folks, tune in to Cliff's Notes every Thursday at 1 o'clock Central for the tips, tricks, and tactics to explode your business. I guarantee it.